Hello. I'm just waiting to see how it is. Okay. That looks reasonable. The joys of live streams where you're not actually 100% sure that everything's okay. But it looks like it is. Just so sorry, just I should have like some background music. Anyway, so there's a few things I just kind of wanted to go over today, and let's just get right into it. The sorry about that. I've let me have a drink. I've been having I think it's already allergy season here, unfortunately. So yeah, just getting right into it. I'm going to cover basically two or three topics today. Kind of, I had mentioned having something about sea stars and the sea star, and I'll get to that at the end. But the first thing I kind of wanted to go over was more of a kind of what would you call it? Just kind of a public service announcement. It's now, at the time of recording this, mid-February, and it's a great time if you have clear skies to look at Orion, which it's well positioned after twilight. It's kind of in the fairly high in the sky after twilight, and over the next month or two, it'll kind of start getting higher and then lower towards sunset. So if you have clear skies, it's a great time to go look at Orion. I was able to get a little bit of observing time on it last week. The moon's getting a little bit more. It's waxing. It's getting bigger right now, so it's starting to interfere probably more with Orion. But Orion is one of my personal favorite constellations for many reasons. Probably a topic for another day. But let me just switch. So this isn't a photo I took. This is something on Wikipedia. But just real quick, I'm not going to belabor this. This is the constellation Orion. This is a deeper field photo. So, but you can see like there's like the main stars, kind of like the shoulders or arms, the belt star. There's the Orion Nebula, and this red star is the famous Betelgeuse, which if you look around on YouTube, apparently it's gone supernova several times, even though it could happen or any time, or it could happen tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of years from now. So, but on YouTube, I was looking the other day at some things, and I saw a few videos where I guess they were trying to, the way it was framed, it sounded like it had already happened, but it hasn't, at least as far as I know. But Orion is an interesting constellation. So you have the Orion Nebula here, down here, kind of in the sword area, and then here's the belt stars, and you can see the Flame Nebula, and there's the Horsehead, really tiny there. And besides the timeliness of it's nicely positioned in the sky right now, I kind of I ran across some stuff recently, and I thought I just kind of this is going to be kind of I don't know if I'd call it an experiment, but I'm let me know if you want. Basically, I'm going to go over some astronomy news that I had run across recently. It is relevant to this, but let me know if you want to see me do more of that in the future. I'm not necessarily going to be making a habit of it, but sometimes I find things of interest in the world of astronomy. And this has to do with kind of hidden things right in front of us. So you can see, so like this was a photo I took with the Seestar of which I've showed on other live streams, and this is just right out of the telescope of the Orion Nebula. But it's interesting as something that's like so visible and so prominent in our sky and so easy, so approachable, that there's still new things being discovered about it. So I subscribe to this newsletter, email newsletter from the NRAO, which is the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. They run the VLA, the Very Large Array, which is the radio telescope array, and it's been involved. It's been around for many years, but it's still being involved with major astronomical discoveries. So I just got this mailing list the other day. So Orion is kind of the Orion Nebula is interesting because it's an area of active star formation, and so it's an area of interest to astronomers because it's very dynamic, and there's things that that kind of aren't visible as easily. But anyway, like so you have like these dust lanes here, like these dark area. Well, it would help if I switch back to the browser. So you have like these dark areas here, these dust lanes. These are kind of like little grains, molecular grains of carbon and other compounds, kind of, and hydrogen and other things kind of floating around. And I don't know if it was in this area specifically, but I'll get back to that later. But they discovered the VLA, the Very Large Observatory, which is in New Mexico, and the James Webb Space Telescope discovered these things that they're calling jumbos, which are Jupiter mass binary objects. So it's interesting. It's like things the size of Jupiter that are floating around in the Orion Nebula, orbiting each other, but not associated with a star. So it's kind of a conundrum. It kind of messes with some of the theories about how stars and planets are formed, that these things are just kind of floating around. But I thought it was kind of interesting that, specifically in Orion here, like they're still discovering new things, like completely new and mysterious, unexplained things. I thought that was kind of cool. And like I say, I just got that. It's a relatively recent discovery in the last few years, and they've discovered a whole bunch more in the last year or two. And they were probing them for like both optically and radio wave, because like Jupiter emits a lot of radio waves. Anyway, that's another topic for another day if people want to get into that. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And this was like totally random astronomy news that was a little more topical last weekend, but I thought it was kind of funny that so one of the things the VLA has been doing is they were involved with that black hole image, the first image of a black hole from a few years ago, just in the last few years. And I guess as part of that, they said, you see the title here, telescope shows Milky Way's black hole is ready for a kick. They, as part of kind of looking at the central black hole of the galaxy, of our galaxy, it's spinning so fast that apparently it's oblong, and they said it's kind of like a football. Anyway, like I say, it was more timely last weekend because of Super Bowl, but but I still thought that was kind of funny. But speaking of kind of like these hidden worlds um, of things floating around in the Orion Nebula, which I think I get a kick kind of out of that. No pun intended from the black hole story, but it's interesting because I've always I like looking at these images. I mean, I find astronomy images. I think they're really uh, beautiful, but I I like kind of understanding, not understanding, but kind of knowing a little bit more about what is going on there. So I was thinking of um, speaking of things that are like right under one's nose. So you've got Orion, and recently I took some photos with the Seestar of the Pacman Nebula, which is this thing right here. And this was processed through Serial. It may have been on one of my videos. I may have reprocessed it with more data, or maybe it was from one of the videos I did on processing images. And it's interesting because so the Pacman Nebula, it's an emission nebula, which means the gas in it, it's a cloud of gas in space and it's glowing. And I won't go into all of the specifics of that. I wanted to focus on one thing particularly, which are, oops, wrong window, which is these things. Let me see. Do I have it? Yeah. These things. These kind of black little things here. And there's some smaller ones like the Seestar. It's not that big of a telescope, so there's a limit on how much it can resolve. Um, but it's kind of interesting because you see when you see things from Earth, you like we're used to seeing the constellations, and we're used to seeing just different things in the sky, but we don't have this. We don't have a three-dimensional. We don't know how it is in three-dimensional space, or we can't see it. Like astronomers have figured out a lot of that, but like if you look at Orion, the things that make up the Orion constellation are at different distances from Earth. And so in the case of like this nebula, you have, this glowing area here that's red and other colors. But then you have this thing, which you could think of, it was either a gap in the gas, or what these things are like clouds of dust, clouds of kind of this darker material that isn't glowing. Just like in the Horsehead Nebula, there's two different things you're looking at. You're looking at the emission nebula, which is the red glowing part, and the horse, the black silhouette, is actually just a dust cloud. But just a dust cloud. What is in those dust clouds? And that's where we get to like these little things. And these are called Bach globules. If you want to look into them, it's really fascinating. But I just thought it was kind of cool that, with this, when, you take a photo from your backyard with this little telescope, and then you can see these things. And these things can actually be like a light year across. They're not necessarily that small, or they could be bigger than that. And when they were discovered, or when they were initially they're named after an astronomer whose last name was Bach, but B-O-K. But it's believed, it was initially hypothesized that they were a place where stars were being born. and it's just that it was too dark for us to see into it. But it was hypothesized back in the 40s, but it wasn't until 1990 that we had the technology to see into these clouds, but not in the visible, but in the infrared. And they found that, yes, indeed, there are some stars forming within these little globules. And they're not that little, but compared to the overall nebula, they're little. And in some cases, it's multiple stars, but not all of them have stars in them. So it's kind of interesting. And it isn't like there's theories on how these things have formed, but it's not, it's still, they're still working through the kind of the theories. So it's fascinating. It's like something you can see with a telescope, or take a photo of with a fairly, a modest telescope, and yet it's something that's actively being studied, and where future stars might be getting formed. And they've even found like planetary disks the beginning of a solar system in these, and multiple star systems and stuff. Not necessarily in these specific ones, but just in general. Some of these probably have stars forming in them. Some probably don't. And it's interesting, if the stars are smaller, they just kind of stay inside this dust cloud. But if the star is bigger, like particularly big, it blows once it forms, the stellar winds start kind of dissipating the cloud, and then you end up with just a star there. And if it's near other gas, like in the case of this emission nebula, the Pacman Nebula, it's lighting up the whole nebula. Not like with its reflected light, but like it's ionizing. It's like a giant neon sign, powered by stars. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I find kind of when you start digging into it, it's kind of fascinating. The scale of it is just kind of mind-boggling. But anyway, that was kind of today's little, one of today's little things, where it's kind of like the stuff that's like right in front of you. But when you try to dig into, or when you start digging into like, what is that thing exactly? Then you start realizing the layers to it, both figuratively and literally. But I'll include links to that in the description. And what else? And then the final thing was that I kind of I mentioned Tandem Seestar, which it wasn't. So the Seestar is a fairly inexpensive telescope, and if you get more than one of them, it's kind of interesting because, like I had a live stream about a week ago, and I had two Seestars. I have two Seestars, and I had both of them running, and I pointed them at the Pacman Nebula. And so I was able to get, in 30 minutes, I was able to get an hour worth of data. So that's pretty cool. You can kind of accumulate things more quickly. But the issue I've had is, like, it's kind of unwieldy. Not unwieldy, but like I have the two little mounts, and they're not very, it's not very convenient. And so I ran across somebody who also has two Seestars. He's in the UK. And I'm glad I did not have the video on, because there was the weirdest ad that was on YouTube. But yeah, let me cut to this. This is some guy in the UK, and he has mounted both of his Seestars kind of on a horizontal beam, and he's got the little levelers right here on each one. And so that I was going to bring along one of my Seestars for the eclipse, the upcoming eclipse, but I was thinking it's kind of, like I say, it's kind of unwieldy. I'm using a more beefy tripod on one of them, but I don't have another tripod. And so I have a second, I have the other Seestar just on its default mount, but it's kind of, because of the obstructions, I would like it to be higher. And so I think what this guy is doing, I need to look more to see if there's other people who've done this, but I think it's kind of interesting. I might have a horizontal mount on my I might put a horizontal beam on the big tripod and then mount both of the Seestars on one. I wonder if anybody's tried doing more than two. That would be another thing to look into. But you know, it's a neat little telescope, and for the price of a lot of other telescopes, you can get more than one Seestar. So I have a feeling more people will start doing this over time because it is so convenient. And really, they wouldn't, if you keep them far enough apart from each other, like they wouldn't interfere with each other. Like only things that are, you know, if you're looking at terrestrial things, it could be one could block the other. But if you're looking up at the sky, they'd be kind of, at worst case, one would be looking over the other, and it shouldn't block it. So I kind of like what this guy did, and I thought I'd if you see me doing something like this, I thought I'd show this so people know I didn't come up with the idea myself. But this looks like it's more permanently mounted, like on a pole. But I thought that was kind of interesting. It just also shows how creative people can be, and resourceful with kind of adapting things in ways that they weren't necessarily intended. But I really, this is a short stream. I've had some longer ones recently. What else? Oh yeah, so I have a couple more Cyril related videos planned in the next week or two. Some follow-ons to the video I already did on kind of fixing photos. I originally had kind of the happy path where things didn't go wrong and processing it in Cyril. And the problem was that the audio died partway through, which reminds me, I just had to make sure that the audio was still working. The audio died partway through, and so I scrapped that whole part, which is why there's, anyway, I want to go do a new video just with kind of happier path, and also maybe kind of walking through getting it set up, Cyril and StarNet plus plus on a Mac, because it's a little weird if you haven't done some of the security related stuff with Apple. So I'm also going to do another Eclipse video, so stay tuned for that. And the last thing is, it's going to be clear. We're going to have some good clear nights here finally for a few days. And so I had thought about doing an evening stream, but I might not. It depends if people, if you're watching this afterwards, comment and let me know if you want to actually see a live stream, observing live stream. People do watch it, so I've thought about doing another one, because the conditions will be nice, just so long as I avoid raccoons, which, yeah, if you didn't see that discussion last Monday, we have a raccoon. We've had some raccoons. They actually, after I had mentioned that on the stream the next morning, or 2 days later, the grass was torn up in the backyard. And I think it was the raccoon. So I'm thinking about doing a live observing stream, but even if I don't do it, an evening one, I will be doing, unless things change, at noon Central Time on Tuesday, or 1800 UTC. I'm going to be doing a live stream, a fairly short live stream at right between noon and 1 p.m. U.S. Central Time, which it's, if it works out, it might be a little adventure. So stay tuned for that if you're intrigued, or you can always, it'll be a video, so you can always watch it after the fact. But that is really all I wanted to cover today. If there's any topics you want me to cover in future videos, let me know in the comments, and if you want me to do more of this where I kind of include kind of the science. I mean, I'm by no means an expert in any of this. I have more than a casual interest in it, but that's a story for another day. But if there's more interest in kind of the science behind some of, or what are some of these things that we're looking at through our telescopes, let me know, and I would happily say more about that. I could even end up doing a standalone video if there's interest in it. But that is all I have right now. I see that some people have tuned in, so I do appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in live, and also let me know if this is a good time, because I've kind of shifted around between 2 and 4 p.m. Saturdays recently, U.S. Central Time, and is there a specific time that works better? I figure those times might be okay because it's like afternoon most places in the US, and if people are in Europe, it's still not like super late. But yeah, that's all I have for today. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.